Thank you. Well, welcome again. Happy 4th of July again. The spiritual principle that I'm working with today is that we are one. We are one. There's actually no exception to the principle of authentic oneness. As hard as it might be to hear, and sometimes as hard as it is for me to say, there is no exception to the phrase, we are one. We are one with all sentient beings. Those we like and those we don't like. Those we want to be around and those we're afraid of being around. Those who hurt other people and those who nurture other people. We are one with all of those people. There is a part of us living in each one of those people, and each one of those people, there is a part in us. We've all been Jesus, and we've all been Judas. And when we can approach each other with the wisdom and compassion, maybe, just maybe, we can stop judging one another as good and bad people. Maybe, just maybe, we can begin to embrace each other, even those that we don't agree with, even those that we don't understand what makes them tick. How great it would be if we allowed everybody who had an opinion to just have their opinion without us reacting to it all the time. It would require us to act from our third belief here, that everything in our experience is either a call for love or an expression of love. How simple has infinite intelligence made this for us? If we could just live with that one simple idea that we are one with all beings in our life. No, Proud Boys, I'm one with you. Yes, I'm going to protest your notion that I should be lined up and shot, but I'm going to try and do it with love in my heart, not hate in my heart. It will be hard, but I'm studying to be a more spiritually intelligent person right now, and so are all of you. Studying to be more spiritually intelligent people, to behave with compassion and wisdom, to have inner and outer peace, no matter what the world is throwing at us, or what anybody might say about me or my sisters and brothers. And when I fall down and give way to my ego that wants to be right all the time, that wants to call you name, give way to my ego that wants revenge for things that you have said, I remember that I'm in spiritual community and that I can call on someone who I meet in class or a practitioner or one of the 5 ministers we have here to talk me off the spiritually ignorant ledge and remind me of today's spiritual truth. We are all one. There is no exception to authentic oneness. To help us become a person who can talk a fellow traveler off the spiritually ignorant ledge, we need to become spiritually intelligent. And we need to work at that every single day. Otherwise, as Jesus taught us, when the blind lead the blind, you both just fall into the ditch. To help us stay out of the ditch, I've been working with a book called the SQ21, the 21 Skills of Spiritual Intelligence. The first several skills have been under different headings. The first heading was Know Thyself. The second heading was Know the World. The third heading was Self-Mastery. And now we're at the end. We're entering the final stage, Social Mastery and Spiritual Presence. It's something Jesus didn't have to be taught. It's something that Mahatma Gandhi didn't have to be taught. They just knew it. It's something that Martin Luther King Jr. didn't have to be taught. He just knew it. But if you're like me, you can use a little help along the way. While I probably know somewhere deep inside of me, I can use a little coaching to help me remember the skills of spiritual intelligence. So we're going to start today with spiritual intelligence skill number 17. If you missed the first 16, they're on our YouTube channel. And I encourage you, excuse me, didn't mean to yell at you. I encourage you to go back and review them, because here is a key to life. Here is a key to a life that's free of discord. You know, Ernest Holmes said in What We believe that everybody can live without discord, because that's our divine nature. These 21 skills will help us get to a life without discord in our life. So number 17, being a wise and effective teacher of spiritual principles. Well, let's first agree that being a teacher is much more than standing in a beautiful red robe on a platform giving a little lecturette. It's much, much more than that. In a sense, we're always teaching by how we show up, by how we behave. So you may not see yourself as a teacher, but as long as you are a human being who is interacting with other human beings, indeed, you are a teacher. Wigglesworth, who is the author of this book, suggests that how we teach others is often dependent on our motives. The lower motives for teaching others, for example, might be that you need to control how they think and how they behave. Now, honestly, that's not always bad. When I first sobered up, the only job I could get, and I shouldn't have gotten that one, was as a bus driver in a very hilly region of farmhouses from K through 8th grade. And I needed to control these children. That was my lower motive, but it was a motive that was good for me and for them. But for most adults, pushing and controlling people doesn't generally work. It merely activates the student's ego, and they rebel against that. You know, some of you have heard me tell the story about the young college student who was in a zoology class that he absolutely loved, and he was getting ready for the final exam, and he studied all night long for this exam. He knew he was going to ace this exam. So he walks into the class, and on the class are 10 stands with birds. But the birds are all covered up except for their legs. The only thing you can see on these stands about the birds are the birds' legs. So the teacher gives out the test, and on it, it says, identify each one of these birds, not only identify them by name, but also by their habitat and their activity. And the kid said, well, God, all I can see is their legs. How do I know that? He became furious because he had studied so hard. So he decides, he just goes up to the teacher and he says, Professor, what is this test? What is this test all about? He said, just go back and sit down and try your best to identify the birds just by looking at their legs. And the kid throws the test down on the professor's desk, and he said, no, I'm not doing that. This is a stupid test. And he walks out, he starts to walk out. And the professor, who had maybe 60 kids in his class, didn't know everybody's name. So he said, son, what's your name? And the kid pulled up his pant leg and he said, you figure it out. But the most effective method of teaching spiritual principles is by showing up in alignment with principle. By showing up in alignment with principle. Even when you're angry, even when you're sad, even when you're disappointment, even when somebody else disrespects you, to be able to show up in alignment in principle. You know, in recovery, we call that attraction rather than promotion. Jesus tried to teach us this when he warned against praying and fasting and acting all spiritual on the outside, but never praying on the inside, like the hypocrites that he talked about did. When we know this behavior, and we know this behavior, we see it sometimes right now. How many television evangelicals have we seen in our lifetime who have preached one set of morals only to find out they were not practicing those morals? In order to be a really spiritually intelligent teacher, you have to be able to walk the talk. You have to be, and I don't do it all the time, you don't do it all the time, but our effort is to try to do it. The poet Khalil Gibran wrote this: the teacher who is most wise does not bid you to enter into the house of his own wisdom, but lead you to the threshold of your own mind. The wisest teacher doesn't try and tell you how to live your life, but by attraction, and then helping you understand how to do that. The nutshell version of skill number 17 is this. It's what Gandhi taught us, be the change you want to see. We want spiritual teachers, but we want their words and their deeds to be the same. We want them to walk the talk and to be spiritually intelligent. In other words, to behave with wisdom and compassion while maintaining inner and outer peace, no matter what the world throws at you. Skill number 18 is being wise and effective leader and a change agent. So what is a change agent? A change agent is someone who helps other people and organizations navigate through changes that result in good solutions and less stress. Now, this can be a corporate organization. It can be a nonprofit organization. It can be a church. It can be a family of origin or a family of choice. Many of us are familiar with the definition of change agent because we have helped our families navigate through changes that have resulted in good solutions and less stress for other family members. Maybe a sibling wanted to marry outside of the family culture, or marry outside of the family religion, or, God forbid, marry someone of the same sex. And it required you to help them navigate the situation with that, without that sibling being put out of the family. Maybe a coworker didn't get a promotion and was stirring up stuff among your team and your department, and it required you to help them navigate the situation without blowing up your whole department. So no matter what the group, there are some things we can learn to sharpen skill number 18. Remember now, this skill is about spiritual intelligence, about being an authentic, spirit-based role model in this life. Wigglesworth says that to achieve becoming a wise and effective leader, you have to understand and demonstrate. Understanding isn't enough. You have to understand and demonstrate 4 key requirements. The first requirement is this: understanding the issues and needs of all the parties, of everybody involved. And that requires us to go beneath the surface and ask the question, why is this upsetting to people? Why is this causing so much stress and discord in my family, in my department, in my church, in my wherever? I've held myself, and I've done this for years, when I just can't get it, asking the question 5 times, the same question. The question is why? Why is this happening? Why are people upset? 5 times. Why should my parents be so upset that my sister is marrying out of my faith? 1, because we were all taught it was wrong. 2, because it will reflect badly on us as parents, especially to our extended family. Number 3, what religion will our grandchildren be if she marries outside of the faith? Number 4, will she be able to go to heaven if she marries outside the faith? Because my faith considers it to be a sin. Number 5, I'm afraid she's going to move further away from me. And the juice comes in the 5th question. I'm afraid she's going to move away from me. By the time you get to the 5th level of why, you've usually uncovered the real reason for the resistance, and you've uncovered your own compassion for their point of view, a point of view that you might not agree with. Key number 2, develop a win-win mentality. Now, I'm not really crazy about that term win-win. It's actually been used a lot, and I think it's been overused, but for today we're going to use it because she used it. Develop a win-win mentality when you become a spiritual role model. We know that with God, all things are possible, and that everyone winning is a little bit of that all things are possible. Stephen Covey, in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, holds to the principle of win-win or no deal at all. Either everybody wins a little bit or no deal can be had, because he wants to avoid the unhappy compromise. And you know, I could probably do a whole sermon on the unhappy compromise. That's a compromise that many of us live with, but we're not fully living anymore because we're not fully bought in. There's no little bit of win in us for that. So that means we have to jump in to resist the temptation to a quick fix, which brings us to the third one, honoring the natural process. And you know what? Honoring the natural process is the most difficult for me in any kind of discord. I like to get things done and not talk about them endlessly, not process them endlessly. But it doesn't serve me, actually. It reminds me that these requirements for becoming a spiritual leader may require us to change a little bit, and that's not always easy for us. It will take work. It will take retraining ourselves. That's why it's so important to go either get the book, 21 Skills of Spiritual Intelligence, and go through it, or go through the last series of talks on YouTube, because retraining can be done. Even the most of us who are the staunchest, even those of us who hate process, who like to just go ahead and get things done, we can be retrained to know the importance of process. The last one, 4, is egoless participation. Egoless participation. Now, egoless doesn't mean that you have eradicated your ego altogether. We are not a Smash the Ego church. And I'm very careful about that because a lot of us have succumbed to that idea that our ego is bad. Your ego is not bad, especially if you put it in perspective, especially when you marry it with the Christ consciousness that is within you. In fact, if our ego is mature, it can become quite an ally for us. If you've had success from previous skills of self-mastery in moving your ego to your higher good, your higher self, then you understand this. But if you don't do that, your spiritually immature ego, that self-righteous voice, that anger-fueled self, is interfering with your ability to be an effective leader. Now, to be clear, anger is not always wrong. It can come from, it can be an appropriate emotion, and often it is an appropriate emotion. It comes from an expansive heart and a care for other people. I don't want other people to be harmed by any societal values. And I'm angry when they are. But here's the thing. Thank you. And can we all clap to that? We don't want anybody to be hurt. Yeah, thank you. It comes from, when we're angry, it comes from an expansive heart and a care for other people. It is very different from the kind of anger that comes from your ego and when your ego is threatened. Being a wise and effective leader and a change agent is complex. It's multidimensional, but we can do it. The world needs us to do it. When we hear people ask what Jesus would do, or what Buddha would do, or what Muhammad would do, it's to become a spiritually intelligent leader. It's to lead by attraction, not by promotion. Every single one of us can do that every time we get into a fracas and we say to ourselves, is this really what I want to be doing right now? Is this really what I want to be saying right now? Now, admittedly, that's not easy to do when you're in the middle of a fracas. You don't want to stop and say, oh, how spiritually intelligent can I be right now? But the truth is, we'll feel so much better when we do. Several weeks or months ago, I talked about the idea of how do you want this story to be told when it's simply a story? When we can ask that question of ourselves, how do I want this story to be told? Do I want it to be told that I'm a spiritually connected person who's walking in alignment with principle? Or do I want to be told that it's I'm some sort of whack job that just went nutty here? And I think we all know the answer. We want to be able to tell ourselves and the world that we are aligned with spiritual principle. So let's take this message into prayer, knowing that there's only one power. It's the power of love, and it runs right through me. It doesn't stop, never stops. Just keeps going over and over and over. And when I let it out, I lighten the world a little bit. And I give thanks for that. don't have to do anything magnificent. I just have to let love out. I release this word into law, and together we say, and so it is. If you